After a night with his mistress, ex-husband shattered as pregnant ex-wife leave with his billionaire rival in helicopter. The helicopter rotors cut through the Chicago night like a knife through silk. On the street below, Wade Calloway stood frozen, his face turned upward toward the sky, watching the impossible unfold before his eyes. His pregnant ex-wife, the woman he had humiliated in front of the entire city, was leaving. Not in a taxi. Not in some modest car with her tail between her legs like he had assumed she would. She was leaving in his billionaire rival's private helicopter, ascending into the glittering night while he stood powerless on the pavement below. Wade's voice cracked as he screamed into the wind. "You can't do this, Paige. You hear me? You can't just leave like this." But she could, and she was. Inside the helicopter, Paige Calloway sat beside Rowan Thatcher, her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. Her eyes no longer filled with tears, but with something far more dangerous. Freedom. Rowan's hand covered hers, steady and warm, as the city lights spread below them like a sea of stars. Rowan leaned close so she could hear him over the rotors. "How does it feel?" Paige turned to him, and for the first time in months, she smiled. A real smile. Not the practiced, painful mask she had worn through countless galas and lonely nights. Like I just remembered how to breathe. Below them, Wade Calloway's world was collapsing in real time. His empire crumbling under the weight of fraud investigations. His mistress already moving on to her next target. His wife, the woman he had discarded like yesterday's newspaper, now flying away with the one man who had the power to destroy everything he had built. And destroy it he would. But before we get to how Wade Calloway ended up on that street, broken and alone, watching his entire life disappear into the Chicago sky, we need to go back. Back to when Paige still believed in fairy tales. Back to when she thought love meant sacrifice instead of surrender. Back to the night that shattered her so completely, she had no choice but to rebuild herself into someone Wade would never recognize. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your very foundation. Have you ever loved someone so completely that you rebuilt your entire world around them, only to watch them tear it apart with their bare hands while smiling at someone else? Have you ever felt life growing inside you while simultaneously feeling yourself dying on the inside? Have you ever stood in a room full of people and felt so invisible you wondered if you were already a ghost? If those words just hit you somewhere deep in your chest, then stay with me. Because what you are about to hear is not just another story about a woman scorned. This is about what happens when betrayal becomes the catalyst for the most powerful transformation you never saw coming. This is about a woman who was told she was nothing and decided to become everything. This is about the moment when the person who breaks you accidentally leads you to the one who makes you whole. So don't go anywhere. Do not scroll past this. Because I promise you, by the time we reach the end, you will understand something profound. Your darkest moment can become the launchpad for your greatest flight. And listen, if you have ever felt underestimated, if you have ever been told you are too much or not enough, then this story is for you. Hit that like button right now, because we are building a community of people who refuse to stay broken. And drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, so I know you are here for this journey. Because trust me, you are going to want to see how this ends. Now let me take you back to where it all began. To the night Paige Calloway's world ended. And to the unexpected stranger who would show her it was actually just beginning. The Chicago skyline burned against the autumn dusk, its towers of glass and steel reflecting a city that never apologized for its ambition. On the 48th floor of the Apex Tower, the city's elite gathered for what the society pages called the event of the season. The annual Philanthropic Vision Gala, where millionaires pretended to care about charity while actually measuring each other's worth in dollars and influence. Paige Calloway stood alone near the fountain terrace, her hand instinctively protective over the gentle swell of her belly beneath her champagne-colored gown. 7 months pregnant, exhausted beyond words, and more alone than she had ever felt in her 32 years. The baby kicked, a small flutter of life reminding her that she was not completely isolated, even if it felt that way. She had arrived at this gala on her husband's arm 3 hours ago. Now, she could not remember the last time she had seen him. Wade Calloway, Chicago's golden boy real estate developer. The man whose face graced business magazines with headlines like the new titan of the Midwest and building an empire before 40. The man who had swept Paige off her feet 6 years ago when she was a graduate student working part-time at an art gallery, earnest and hopeful, believing in love like it was oxygen. He had been different then. Or maybe she had just been blind. Mrs. Calloway. Paige turned to find a young server offering her sparkling water with a sympathetic smile. The kind of smile that said, "I have noticed you are alone, and I feel sorry for you." "Thank you," Paige murmured, taking the glass with trembling fingers. She had learned to recognize pity. It had become as familiar as her own reflection, the one she barely recognized anymore. Where had that bright-eyed girl gone? The one who believed marriage meant partnership, that pregnancy meant joy, that vows spoken before God actually meant something? The laughter drifted from inside the ballroom, sharp and bright. Paige's chest tightened. She knew that laugh. It was not hers. Steeling herself, she walked back through the French doors into the ballroom, her heels clicking against marble that cost more per square foot than most people's monthly rent. The chandelier overhead dripped crystal tears, and beneath its glittering light, the scene that greeted her stopped her heart completely. Wait. Her husband, the father of her unborn child. His jacket discarded, his tie loosened, his arm wrapped around a woman in a dress so red it looked like fresh blood against pale skin. Kendra Ashworth. Everyone knew Kendra. She was impossible to miss. A former actress turned lifestyle influencer whose Instagram boasted 3 million followers and whose morals could fit in a thimble. Dark hair cascading in waves, lips painted the color of sin, and a body she displayed like a weapon she had mastered using. But it was not just that Wade's arm was around her waist. It was the intimacy of it. The way she leaned into him as if she belonged there. The way his thumb traced small circles on her hip. A gesture Paige recognized because he used to do that to her, back when he still touched her at all. The cameras flashed. Society photographers capturing every angle. This was not hidden. This was a declaration. Paige's water glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the marble in a sound that should have been deafening but was swallowed by music and laughter. No one noticed. No one except the server who had given it to her, who rushed over with napkins and more of that terrible pity in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," Paige whispered, though she was not sure if she was apologizing for the glass or for existing. When she looked up again, Wade had seen her. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and for one breathless moment, Paige thought she might see guilt, shame, something human. Instead, Wade smirked. Actually smirked. Then he leaned down and whispered something in Kendra's ear that made the other woman throw her head back in exaggerated laughter, her hand sliding up Wade's chest in a gesture so possessive it burned. The message was clear. "You see this? This is what I choose. Not you." Paige felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart, that had broken months ago, but something deeper. Her sense of self, maybe. The last fragile thread of hope that this marriage could be salvaged. She turned and walked toward the exit, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall in public. The hallway outside the ballroom stretched endlessly, her reflection multiplying in the mirrored walls. A pregnant woman in a beautiful dress, looking like a ghost of someone who used to matter. She made it to the elevator before the first sob broke free, pressed the button with shaking hands. The doors began to close, offering escape. A hand stopped them. Paige looked up, prepared to tell whoever it was that she needed to be alone, but the words died in her throat. The man who stepped into the elevator was not someone you could easily dismiss. Tall, easily 6'3", with broad shoulders that filled his charcoal suit with effortless authority. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples. A face carved in sharp angles that might have been intimidating if not for the surprising gentleness in his storm gray eyes. Eyes that were looking at her with something Paige had not seen in so long she had forgotten what it felt like. Genuine concern. "Are you all right?" His voice was deep, textured like aged whiskey. "I'm fine." Paige lied automatically, wiping at her eyes. He did not move to press a floor button. Just stood there, studying her with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable, but somehow did not. "You're Paige Calloway," he said quietly. Not a question. She stiffened. "Do I know you?" "No. But I know your husband." Something dark flickered across his face. "I'm Rowan Thatcher." The name hit her like a physical blow. Rowan Thatcher, Wade's biggest rival. the billionaire who had beaten Wade to 3 major development deals in the past 2 years. The man Wade ranted about over scotch, calling him arrogant, ruthless, and a dozen other things fueled by wounded ego. Wade hated Rowan Thatcher, which made what Rowan said next all the more shocking. I saw what just happened in there. Rowan continued, his jaw tightening. And I want you to know something. You deserve better than a man who flaunts his mistress while his pregnant wife stands alone. Paige's breath caught. Why do you care? Rowan's gray eyes held hers with unsettling steadiness. Because I have been watching Wade Calloway build his empire on lies and cruelty for years. And I am tired of watching good people get destroyed in his wake. The elevator doors started to close again, but Rowan hit the stop button, flooding the small space with an alarm that rang distant and unimportant. Listen to me, Paige. I know we are strangers. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I am going to tell you the truth that everyone else is too polite or too cowardly to say. He stepped closer, and Paige could smell expensive cologne mixed with something warmer. Cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. Wade Calloway does not deserve you. He never did. And you do not have to keep letting him break you. I don't. Paige's voice cracked. I don't know how to do anything else. Yes, you do. Rowan's voice softened. You are stronger than you think. And when you are ready to prove it, I will help you. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket. Heavy stock, embossed with simple lettering. Just a name and a number. Why would you help me? Paige whispered, taking the card with numb fingers. Rowan's expression shifted into something Paige could not quite read. Pain, maybe. Or memory. Because someone should have helped my sister when her husband destroyed her. He said quietly. But no one did. And I will not make that mistake again. Then he released the stop button, and the elevator began to descend. When the doors opened to the lobby, Rowan stepped out but turned back, holding the door. One more thing, Paige. That scene upstairs? Wade wanted you to see it. He wanted to humiliate you. Do not give him the satisfaction of staying broken. Get angry instead. Anger is fuel. And when you are ready to burn his world down, call me. Then he was gone, striding across the marble lobby with the confidence of a man who owned half the city. Which, Paige realized with a strange flutter in her chest, he probably did. She looked down at the card in her hand. Rowan Thatcher, CEO, Thatcher Global. The elevator doors started to close again, but this time Paige stepped out, her hand still on her belly, her mind racing. She had come to this gala as Wade Calloway's wife. Invisible, humiliated, broken. But as she walked out into the Chicago night, something new stirred beneath the pain. Something dangerous. Anger. The penthouse had never felt like home. 63rd floor, panoramic views of Chicago glittering like scattered diamonds. Furniture that cost more than most people's cars. It was a showpiece. A monument to Wade's success. And tonight, as Paige sat alone on the leather sofa at 2 in the morning, it felt like a mausoleum. Wade had not come home. No surprise there. But this time, Paige did not cry. Instead, she sat with Rowan Thatcher's card in one hand and her phone in the other, scrolling through the photos that had already flooded social media. Wade and Kendra at the gala, his hand on her hip, her lips near his ear. Another photo of them leaving together in Wade's black Mercedes. The comments ranged from scandalized to cruel. Poor Paige Calloway. Pregnant and humiliated. Wade upgraded. Can you blame him? This is what happens when you trap a powerful man with a baby. That last one made Paige's blood boil. Trap him? She had gotten pregnant because Wade said he wanted a family. Said it would cement their legacy. Now she understood what he had really meant. An heir to inherit his empire while he lived whatever life he wanted on the side. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Sweetheart, I saw the photos. Are you okay? No. She was not okay. But she typed back. I'm fine, Mom. Don't worry. Another buzz. This time from her best friend from college, Harper. Paige, what the hell? Do you need me to come over? Paige stared at the message. What would she even say? That her marriage had been dying for months? That Wade had stopped touching her the moment her belly started showing? That she had been so desperate to save what they had that she had ignored every warning sign until she was standing in a ballroom, watching her husband choose someone else? She set the phone down and looked at Rowan's card again. When you are ready to burn his world down, call me. Could she do that? Could she actually fight back? The baby kicked. Stronger this time, as if answering for her. Paige pressed her hand to her belly and made a promise. I will not let you grow up thinking this is normal. I will not let you think your mother was weak. At 3 in the morning, she finally stood up, walked to the bedroom she had once shared with Wade, though he rarely slept there anymore. Opened the closet where her clothes hung next to his expensive suits. She started packing. Not everything. Just enough. Comfortable clothes. Important documents. The ultrasound photos Wade had never bothered to look at. By the time the sun rose over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Paige Calloway had made her decision. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on Rowan Thatcher's card. He answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. Paige. Just her name. But the way he said it, like she was someone who mattered, made her throat tight. I'm ready, she said simply. A pause. Then, where are you? Home. Wade's penthouse. Stay there. I'm sending a car. 20 minutes. Rowan. She did not even know what she wanted to say. Thank you? Why are you doing this? What happens now? You made the hard choice. Rowan said gently. Everything else, we will figure out together. I promise. The line went dead. Paige stood in the living room of the penthouse, watching the sunrise paint gold across the city, and realized she was not afraid anymore. She was furious. And fury, she was learning, was so much more powerful than despair. Wade Calloway returned to the penthouse at noon, reeking of expensive perfume and wearing yesterday's shirt. He walked in expecting silence, submission, maybe tears. Instead, he found Paige sitting calmly at the dining table, dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back, her face free of makeup. She looked younger, stronger, and she was smiling. Where the hell were you? Wade demanded, though his tone was more annoyed than concerned. I could ask you the same thing. Paige replied evenly, but we both know the answer. Wade's eyes narrowed. Don't start with me, Paige. I'm not in the mood. Good. Neither am I. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Divorce papers. I have already signed them. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Wade looked genuinely shocked. Then he laughed. Cruel. Mocking. You're divorcing me? That's hilarious. On what grounds, sweetheart? You have got nothing. No money, no career, no leverage. You think any lawyer in this city will go against me? Paige's smile did not waver. I already have a lawyer. One of the best, actually. Funny how quickly people return your calls when Rowan Thatcher makes the introduction. Wade's face went white, then red. Thatcher? You went to Rowan Thatcher? I did not go to him. He came to me. Turns out he has been watching you for years, Wade. Watching you cut corners, bribe inspectors, forge documents. He has proof. And unless you want it all to go public, you are going to sign these papers and give me exactly what I am asking for. Wade slammed his fist on the table, making Paige jump despite herself. You ungrateful bitch. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing but humiliation and loneliness. Paige stood, her hand on her belly. But that ends today. Sign the papers, Wade. It's over. You think Thatcher gives a damn about you? Wade spat. He's using you to get to me. The second he destroys my reputation, he will drop you like yesterday's garbage. For the first time, doubt flickered in Paige's chest. But she pushed it aside. Maybe. But I would rather take my chances with someone who treats me with respect than stay with someone who treats me like I'm invisible. She walked toward the door, her bag already packed and waiting. Paige. Wade's voice changed. Softer. Almost pleading. Don't do this. Think about the baby. A child needs both parents. Paige turned back, and the look in her eyes stopped whatever else he had been about to say. A child needs a parent who shows them what love looks like. What strength looks like. You have shown me neither. Goodbye, Wade. She walked out, and did not look back. Rowan Thatcher's office occupied the entire top floor of the Thatcher Global Building, a sleek tower of black glass that dominated Chicago's financial district. Unlike Wade's ostentatious displays of wealth, Rowan's space was understated. Elegant, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Minimalist furniture. Art that was clearly chosen for meaning rather than price tag. Paige sat across from him, still processing the fact that she had actually left, that she had walked out of her marriage, that she was here, in the office of Chicago's most powerful developer, about to plan her next move. How are you feeling? Rowan asked, and the genuine concern in his voice nearly undid her composure. Terrified, Paige admitted. But also free? Is that strange? No. It's human. Rowan leaned forward, his gray eyes steady on hers. This. I meant what I
Lawyers,
said, Paige. Housing. I will help whatever you need. You do not have to face this alone. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why do you care this much about a stranger? Rowan was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as if deciding how much truth to share. Finally, I told you about my sister. Her name was Adelaide. She married young, 23, to a man who seemed perfect on paper. Wealthy family, good education, charming. But behind closed doors, he was cruel. He controlled every aspect of her life, isolated her from family and friends, made her believe she was nothing without him. Paige's breath caught. When she finally got the courage to leave, she came to me for help. And Rowan's voice roughened with old pain. I was building my company, obsessed with success. I told her I would help her later when I had more time. I gave her money and sent her away. Rowan. She went back to him. Rowan continued, his eyes distant. Because she did not think she deserved better. Because she was afraid. And 3 months later, she drove her car off a bridge. The police called it an accident, but I knew better. Tears burned in Paige's eyes. I'm so sorry. I swore after she died that I would never ignore someone in pain again. That I would use everything I had built, all the power and money and influence, to help people escape the kind of hell Adelaide could not. His eyes refocused on Paige, fierce and gentle at once. So when I saw you standing alone at that gala, 7 months pregnant while your husband flaunted his mistress, I saw her. And I could not walk away. Paige realized she was crying. I'm not your sister. No, you're stronger. You walked away. And now I am going to make sure Wade Calloway regrets ever making you feel small. Over the next weeks, Paige learned what it meant to have someone truly in her corner. Rowan did not just provide lawyers. He provided a safe place to stay in one of his properties, a beautiful townhouse in Lincoln Park with a garden and space for a nursery. He connected her with a doctor who specialized in high-risk pregnancies. He made sure the divorce proceedings moved forward efficiently while protecting her from Wade's increasingly desperate attempts to intimidate her into coming back. But more than that, Rowan gave her something she had lost: belief in herself. He encouraged her to pursue the art degree she had abandoned when she married Wade, introduced her to gallery owners who remembered her work, listened when she talked about her dreams of opening a foundation to help women leaving abusive marriages, and then offered to fund it. You do not have to do all this, Paige said one evening as they reviewed foundation plans in his office. I know, Rowan replied. I want to. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air between them. Something warm and terrifying and entirely unexpected. Paige looked away first, her hand moving to her belly where the baby was doing gymnastics. I'm not. I cannot. I'm about to be a single mother. I'm still technically married. I'm a mess, Rowan. You're magnificent, Rowan said quietly. And I'm not asking for anything, Paige. I just want you to see yourself the way I see you. How's that? Like someone worth fighting for. Paige Calloway had not been born into luxury. Her roots were small-town Indiana, where weekends meant family cookouts and afternoons watching Little League games from rusted bleachers. Her father was a high school history teacher who could make the past come alive for bored teenagers. Her mother was a nurse who worked double shifts but still found time to volunteer at the free clinic every Saturday. From those humble beginnings, Paige learned grit. She learned how to stretch every dollar, how to fight for every dream, and how to never give up, no matter how steep the climb. She carried that fire with her when she earned a full scholarship to the Art Institute of Chicago. It was her escape, her shot at building something beyond her parents' sacrifices. She studied fine arts, worked part-time at the Millennium Gallery, and lived on instant noodles while other students breezed through life on their parents' credit cards. Even then, she had a quiet elegance, the kind of beauty that did not scream for attention but lingered in people's minds. Long chestnut hair, soft brown eyes, and a calm demeanor that drew people in. Professors admired her work ethic. Classmates trusted her wisdom. She was the girl everyone underestimated until she proved them wrong. It was during her final year of graduate school, at a contemporary art exhibition opening, that she first met Wade Calloway. Back then, he was not the polished billionaire plastered across business magazines. He was ambitious, sharp-eyed, and hungry for success. He had just landed his first big real estate deal, and people whispered his name with cautious respect. Paige had not known who he was. She only noticed the way he carried himself, the way he laughed a little too loud, The way his gaze lingered on her when she passed by with a tray of champagne flutes she was serving as part of her gallery work. "You work here?" he had asked, his voice smooth with curiosity. "Graduate assistant." She answered simply, balancing the tray on her arm. "And part-time events coordinator." "What are you studying?" "Fine arts. Focus on contemporary women artists who have been erased from historical narratives." Something about her answer intrigued him. Maybe it was that she was not there to impress, but to serve and learn. Maybe it was that she looked at him without awe, as if he were just another man instead of a rising star. Whatever it was, Wade pursued her with determination. Flowers delivered to her tiny apartment. Surprise visits to the gallery. Lavish dates that swept her out of the world she knew and into his universe of glittering lights and endless possibilities. At first, Paige resisted. She was not sure if she belonged in his world or if he truly belonged in hers. But Wade had a way of making promises sound like destiny. "I will give you the life you deserve," he whispered one night as they walked along the river walk, the city lights shimmering across the water. "You will never have to struggle again. You can focus entirely on your art." For a girl who had grown up clipping coupons and worrying about rent, the promise was intoxicating. She believed him. She believed in him. They married in a lavish ceremony at the Palmer House Hotel. The photos splashed across society pages showed her in a lace gown, radiant, holding his hand as if nothing could ever break them apart. To the world, she was lucky, married to one of the city's most promising young developers. To Paige, it was more than luck. It was love, or so she thought. For a while, life was beautiful. Their penthouse apartment had sweeping views of the city. They traveled to Paris, dined in Michelin-star restaurants, rubbed shoulders with CEOs and celebrities. Wade made her feel chosen, special, as if she had stepped into a fairy tale. But fairy tales rarely last. Slowly, the cracks began to show. He grew restless, spending more nights at the office or with investors. She began to notice the faint smell of perfume that was not hers clinging to his suits. The lipstick smudges that did not match her shade. The late-night text messages he guarded like state secrets. Still, Paige endured. She told herself it was just the stress of his business, that every marriage had storms. And when she found out she was pregnant, she believed it would change everything. She imagined Wade holding their child, imagined the three of them as a family, bound together in ways betrayal could never undo. But reality was harsher. Wade's attention drifted further, not closer. He sneered at her cravings, rolled his eyes when she complained of fatigue, and spent money freely on parties while scolding her for buying prenatal vitamins. The man she once adored seemed to vanish before her eyes, replaced by someone cruel, careless, and distant. Paige tried to remind herself of the girl she once was. The girl who had fought her way out of a small town, who had earned her place in Chicago on her own merit. But pregnancy made her vulnerable. Hormones, exhaustion, and the crushing loneliness of their cold penthouse made her doubt her own worth. She wondered if maybe she was too plain, too ordinary for a man like Wade. And then came that night, the night of his mistress, the night her illusions shattered completely. Still, beneath the heartbreak, a flicker of strength remained. She was her parents' daughter, after all. She knew what it meant to fight. She knew she could not let her child be raised in a home poisoned by deceit. And somewhere deep inside, she knew she was not as alone as she felt. Her fate had already placed someone powerful, someone unexpected on her path. A man whose shadow loomed larger than Wade's ego ever could. A man who would soon step into her life and change everything. She just did not know yet that her salvation was already watching. The weeks following Paige's departure from the penthouse moved with surprising speed. While Wade scrambled to maintain his crumbling reputation, Paige found herself in a world she had never imagined. The Lincoln Park townhouse Rowan secured for her was everything the penthouse was not. Smaller, yes, but filled with warmth and natural light. There was a garden where autumn roses still bloomed. Large windows that let in the morning sun. Rooms that felt like they could actually be lived in rather than displayed. For the first time in months, Paige slept without tears. Rowan did not hover, but he was there, steady as ever. He walked with her to doctor's appointments, sat with her through legal consultations, and made sure the world knew she was no longer a woman to pity, but a woman to respect. One morning, as Paige sat in the townhouse kitchen sketching ideas for the foundation's logo, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Hello? Mrs. Calloway. The voice was professional, female, warm. My name is Miranda Chun. Rowan Thatcher asked me to represent you in your divorce proceedings. I would love to meet with you this week to discuss strategy. Paige's hand tightened on the phone. Ah, yes. Of course. When? Are you free this afternoon? I can come to you. 3 hours later, Miranda Chun sat across from Paige in the townhouse living room, a leather portfolio open on the coffee table between them. Miranda was in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a grandmother's warmth when she smiled. Let me be clear about something from the start, Miranda said, pouring them both tea from the pot Paige had prepared. I do not take every case that comes my way. But when Rowan called me about you, when he told me what Wade did at that gala, I cleared my schedule. Why? Paige asked. Miranda's eyes softened. Because 30 years ago, I was you. Pregnant, humiliated by a husband who thought he was untouchable. And no one helped me. I lost everything in that divorce because I did not know how to fight back. She leaned forward. I became a lawyer so that other women would not have to go through what I did. And trust me, Paige, Wade Calloway is going to regret underestimating you. Over the next hour, Miranda laid out the strategy. They were not just going for a simple divorce. They were going after everything. Financial settlements. The townhouse. Full custody with only supervised visitation for Wade. And most importantly, they were going to make sure Wade's business practices came under scrutiny. Rowan mentioned he has evidence of fraud? Miranda asked. Paige nodded. He showed me some of it. Offshore accounts, bribed inspectors, forged loan documents. Good. We are going to give all of that to the appropriate authorities. Not as revenge, but as truth. Wade built his empire on lies. It is time for it to come down. Won't that make me look vindictive? Miranda smiled. Honey, you are not the one committing fraud. You are just making sure the truth comes to light. There is a difference. As Miranda packed up her portfolio to leave, she paused at the door. One more thing. Rowan Thatcher is a good man. One of the best I have ever worked with. Whatever happens between you two, know that his intentions are genuine. He is not playing games. After Miranda left, Paige sat in the quiet townhouse, her hand on her belly, and let herself imagine a future beyond Wade. A future where she was not defined by her marriage or her divorce, but by who she chose to become. The baby kicked, as if in agreement. The private investigator Rowan hired was named Daniel Cross. Former Chicago PD detective, now freelance, with a reputation for finding truths people desperately wanted to keep buried. He met with Paige and Rowan one evening at the Thatcher Global offices, a thick folder in his hands. I have to warn you, Daniel said, his voice gravelly from decades of smoking. He had recently quit. What is in here is not pretty. If you want to maintain any illusions about your husband, now is the time to walk away. Paige straightened her shoulders. Show me. Daniel opened the folder. Inside were photographs, printed emails, bank statements, receipts. A complete documentation of Wade's double life. The affair with Kendra Ashworth started 6 months ago. Daniel began, sliding photos across the table. Hotel receipts from the Peninsula, the Langham, the Ritz-Carlton. Always charged to a corporate card under false expense reports. Paige studied the images. Wade and Kendra entering hotels, leaving the next morning. Her stomach turned, but she kept her face neutral. But that is just the surface. Daniel continued. Your husband has been systematically defrauding his investors for 3 years. He has offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands holding approximately $8 million that should have been declared. He has been bribing city inspectors to pass buildings that do not meet code. And he has been forging loan applications to secure funding he would not otherwise qualify for. Rowan's jaw tightened. How did he hide this for so long? He is smart. I will give him that, Daniel said. But he got arrogant. Started leaving trails. Trusting the wrong people. His head of operations, guy named Marcus Perry, he is the one who gave me most of this. Wade threw him under the bus on a deal that went south. Marcus decided to return the favor. Can we use this? Paige asked. All of it. Daniel confirmed. I have already made copies for the SEC, the Illinois Attorney General's office, and the Chicago Building Commission. Once we release this, Wade's empire will collapse within weeks. Paige looked at Rowan. Is this wrong? Using this to help my divorce? You are not using it for your divorce. Rowan said gently. You are making sure a criminal faces consequences. The fact that it also protects you and your child is just justice working the way it should. That night, alone in the townhouse, Paige made a decision. She called Miranda. File everything, she said when the lawyer answered. I want the divorce finalized as quickly as possible. And give the evidence to the authorities. Wade needs to face what he has done. Are you sure? Miranda asked. Once this starts, there is no going back. I'm sure, Paige said, and meant it. I'm done protecting him from himself. The transformation Paige underwent over the following weeks was remarkable. It was not just external, though that changed too. Rowan connected her with a stylist named Priya, a woman who understood that fashion was not about hiding, but about revealing your true self. You have been dressing for Wade's world, Priya said during their first consultation, looking through Paige's wardrobe of designer gowns Wade had chosen. Now we dress for yours. The new wardrobe Priya helped Paige build was different. Tailored suits in deep jewel tones. Elegant dresses that honored her pregnancy rather than hiding it. Comfortable shoes that still looked powerful. Clothes that made Paige feel like herself again. But the real transformation was internal. Rowan encouraged Paige to return to her art. He converted one of the townhouse's spare rooms into a studio, complete with easels, paints, and the kind of natural light artists dream of. The first time Paige stood in that studio, brush in hand, canvas blank before her, she cried. Not from sadness, but from recognition. This was who she was. Not Wade's wife. Not a trophy to be displayed. An artist. A creator. A woman with her own voice. Her first painting was of the baby. Not a realistic portrait, but an abstract representation of new life, hope, and fierce protective love. All swirling colors and bold strokes. When Rowan saw it, he was silent for a long moment. This is extraordinary, he finally said. Have you thought about showing again? I have not shown my work in 6 years. Then it is time. Within 2 weeks, Rowan had connected Paige with the director of a prominent Chicago gallery. The woman, Catherine Moss, had actually been one of Paige's professors at the Art Institute. I always wondered what happened to you, Catherine said when they met for coffee. You were one of the most talented students I ever taught. Then you married Wade Calloway and just disappeared. I lost myself, Paige admitted. But I'm finding my way back. Catherine looked at the photos of Paige's recent work on her phone and nodded slowly. I want to give you a show. 6 months from now. A solo exhibition. Your story, your art, your truth. What do you say? Paige thought about the girl she used to be. The one who dreamed of gallery shows and critical acclaim. The one Wade had convinced to set aside her ambitions for his. Yes, she said. Absolutely yes. The foundation was Paige's other passion project. The idea had started as a whisper, a wish, a what if. What if there was a place women could go when they needed to leave? What if there was support beyond just a shelter? What if they could actually rebuild their lives? Rowan did not just support the idea. He helped make it real. They worked together on the mission statement, the structure, the funding. Rowan provided the initial capital and connected Paige with people who could help. Social workers, lawyers, therapists, job placement specialists. What should we call it? Rowan asked one evening as they reviewed paperwork in his office. Paige thought for a moment. The Calloway Foundation. Using my maiden name, not Wade's. I want women to know this is about reclaiming identity. Rowan smiled. Perfect. The first woman the foundation helped was named Sarah. She was 29, with 2 small children, fleeing a husband who had been physically abusive for years. She came to them through a referral from a domestic violence shelter, desperate for legal help and a safe place to stay. Paige met with her personally in the foundation's small office, which Rowan had helped them set up in a discreet location. I do not have any money, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. I cannot pay you. You do not have to. Paige replied gently. That is why we exist. Tell me what you need. Over the next months, the foundation helped Sarah get a divorce, secure a restraining order, find affordable housing, and get job training as a medical assistant. Watching Sarah's transformation, seeing her go from broken and terrified to strong and hopeful, Paige understood something profound. This was her purpose. Not being Wade's wife. Not living in a penthouse. Helping women find their strength. One afternoon, Sarah hugged Paige goodbye after a check-in meeting. Thank you, she whispered. You saved my life. No, Paige said, hugging her back. You saved your own life. I just walked beside you while you did it. After Sarah left, Paige sat in the quiet office and cried. But these were not tears of pain. They were tears of purpose, of meaning, of becoming who she was always meant to be. Rowan found her there, tears on her cheeks, and sat beside her without a word. Just his presence, steady and sure. "Thank you," Paige said softly. "For all of this. You did this." Rowan replied. "I just opened some doors. You are the one walking through them." Their hands found each other in the silence, and for the first time, Paige let herself acknowledge what was growing between them. It was not gratitude, though she was grateful. It was not obligation, though she felt indebted. It was something deeper, more real. It was the beginning of love, but she was not ready to name it yet. Not when her divorce was still pending. Not when her baby was due in less than 2 months. Not when her life was still in flux. Rowan seemed to understand. He squeezed her hand gently, then let go. No pressure, no demands, just patience. And somehow, that patience made her fall for him even more. The news of Wade's impending legal troubles broke on a Tuesday morning. Chicago Tribune headline: "Prominent developer under federal investigation for fraud." The article detailed everything. The offshore accounts, the bribed inspectors, the forged documents. Anonymous sources, which Paige knew were Daniel Cross and Marcus Perry, provided evidence that was impossible to refute. Within hours, the story went national. By evening, Wade's investors were calling emergency board meetings. His business partners were distancing themselves. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced a formal investigation. Paige's phone exploded with calls from reporters, old friends, distant relatives. She ignored all of them except one. Harper, her best friend from college, who she had been too ashamed to talk to during the worst of her marriage. "I saw the news," Harper said when Paige answered. "Please tell me you are okay." "I'm better than okay," Paige said, and realized it was true. "I'm free, Harper. For the first time in years, I'm actually free." "Good." Harper's voice was fierce. "Because that man never deserved you. Not for 1 second. They talked for an hour, catching up, reconnecting." Harper was married now, living in Boston, teaching literature at a small college. She had 2 kids and a husband who actually respected her. "Come visit," Harper insisted. "Bring the baby after she is born. My kids would love to meet their Aunt Paige." "I will," Paige promised. "I really will." After they hung up, Paige sat in the townhouse living room, hand on her belly, and took stock of her life. 2 months ago, she had been invisible, humiliated, trapped. Now she had a foundation helping women. An art show scheduled, a divorce in progress, a safe home, real friends, and Rowan. Steady, patient, respectful Rowan, who had shown her what it meant to be valued. The baby kicked hard, and Paige laughed. "We are going to be okay," she whispered. "Better than okay. We are going to thrive." She did not know that in just a few weeks, everything would come to a head at one final, spectacular confrontation. That Wade would make one last desperate play for control. That Rowan would make a gesture so dramatic it would become Chicago legend. All she knew in this moment was that she was no longer the woman Wade had broken. She was Paige Calloway, artist, advocate, mother-to-be, and she was just getting started. Wade Calloway was desperate, and desperate men make dangerous decisions. 3 weeks after the fraud investigation went public, he had lost half his investor base. His board of directors had called for an emergency vote. 2 of his major development projects had been frozen pending investigation. Banks were calling in loans. His carefully constructed empire was crumbling faster than he could shore up the foundations. And it was all because of her. Because of Paige. Because of Rowan Thatcher. He sat in his penthouse office, the same penthouse Paige had walked out of, and stared at his phone. Kendra had stopped answering his calls 2 weeks ago. He had seen her Instagram posts. She was already in the Hamptons with some tech entrepreneur, wearing a diamond bracelet Wade definitely had not bought her. She had used him, and now she was gone. Just like Paige. Except Paige had not used him. Paige had loved him, and he had thrown that away for what? For Kendra's empty laughter? For the thrill of feeling powerful? For his own ego? His lawyer, an expensive shark named Robert Hendricks, had been brutally honest in their last meeting. "You are going to lose the divorce. You are probably going to lose your company. And if the SEC finds even half of what they are looking for, you are going to lose your freedom. Your only play right now is damage control." But Wade was not interested in damage control. He was interested in winning. In showing Paige that she could not just walk away. In proving to Rowan Thatcher that he was not untouchable. So when the invitation to the Skyline Summit Gala arrived, Wade saw an opportunity. The gala was Chicago's most exclusive annual event, held at the Apex Hotel's rooftop ballroom. Every power player in the city would be there. Press. Cameras. The perfect stage. Wade called Kendra. For once, she answered. What do you want? Her voice was bored. The Skyline Summit Gala. Next month. Come with me. She laughed. Are you serious? Wade, we are done. I have moved on. I will pay you. 50,000. Just for one night. We show up together. We smile for the cameras. We prove that I am still on top. There was a pause. Then, make it 75 and you have got a deal. But I am not sleeping with you. This is strictly business. Fine. Wade said, hating how pathetic he sounded. 75. When he hung up, he poured himself a scotch and looked out at the Chicago skyline. The city that had once felt like his kingdom now felt like a prison. But he was not going down without a fight. What Wade did not know was that Paige had also been invited to the gala, not as someone's wife or accessory, but as the guest of honor. The invitation arrived at the townhouse on a Tuesday afternoon. Paige opened the heavy envelope and read the embossed card inside. You are cordially invited to the Skyline Summit Gala as our honored guest. We would like to recognize the launch of the Callaway Foundation and your advocacy work for women's empowerment. Paige's hands trembled. This was the same event where Chicago's elite gathered every year. The same crowd that had witnessed her humiliation at the Philanthropic Vision Gala 6 months ago. Rowan, who had stopped by to drop off some foundation paperwork, noticed her expression. What is it? She handed him the invitation. They want me to be the honored guest. To speak about the foundation. Rowan read the card and smiled. That is incredible, Paige. You should do it. I am 9 months pregnant. I could go into labor at any moment. Then we will have a medical team on standby. Rowan's eyes were steady. This is your moment to show Wade and everyone else who you have become. Do not let fear steal that from you. Paige looked down at her belly, where the baby was doing somersaults. What if he is there? What if he brings Kendra? Then he will have to watch you shine. Rowan leaned forward. Paige, you have spent months rebuilding yourself. You have launched a foundation that has helped dozens of women. You have reconnected with your art. You have shown the world what real strength looks like. One man's presence should not have the power to diminish that. He was right. Paige knew he was right. But the thought of seeing Wade still made her chest tight. Will you be there? She asked quietly. With me? Rowan's expression softened. I will be wherever you need me to be. That evening, Paige called Miranda. I am going to the gala. Good. Miranda said firmly. It is time for Chicago to see the real Paige Calloway. Not Wade's victim. Not even his ex-wife. Just you. Powerful. Accomplished. Unstoppable. What should I say? In my speech? The truth. Tell them your story. Tell them why the foundation matters. Make them understand that betrayal does not have to be an ending. She paused. And Paige? We're something that makes you feel like a queen. Because that is what you are? After the call, Paige stood in front of her bedroom mirror, hands on her pregnant belly. The woman looking back at her was not the same person who had stood alone at a gala 6 months ago. This woman had fire in her eyes, purpose in her stance, strength in every line of her body. I can do this, she whispered to her reflection. We can do this. The baby kicked in agreement. The preparation for the gala was meticulous. Priya, Paige's stylist, found a midnight blue gown that was nothing short of stunning. It draped elegantly over Paige's pregnant form, the fabric shimmering like water under moonlight. The neckline was modest but sophisticated. The silhouette celebrated rather than hid her pregnancy. You look like power itself, Priya said when Paige tried it on. This is not a woman asking for permission to exist. This is a woman claiming her space. Paige's hair and makeup were scheduled for the morning of the gala, natural but polished, highlighting her features rather than hiding them. She wanted to look like herself, not like someone trying to compete with Kendra's artificial glamour. The foundation's communications director, a sharp young woman named Lisa, helped Paige prepare her speech. They worked through multiple drafts, refining the message. Start with where you were, Lisa advised. Then show them where you are. End with where you are going. Make it personal but universal. Every woman in that room should see herself in your story. The night before the gala, Paige could not sleep. She lay in bed, feeling the baby move, wondering if she was making a mistake. What if she froze on stage? What if Wade heckled her? What if the whole thing became another humiliation? Her phone buzzed. A text from Rowan. I know you are not sleeping. Want some company? Paige smiled despite her anxiety. Just friendship company. Nothing more. Understood. I will bring tea. 20 minutes later, Rowan sat in her living room, 2 cups of chamomile tea steaming on the coffee table between them. He did not ask if she was nervous. He did not offer false reassurance. He just sat with her in the quiet. Tell me about Adelaide. Paige said finally. Your sister. What was she like? Rowan's expression softened with memory and pain. She was brilliant. Funny. She could light up a room just by walking into it. She wanted to be a teacher. Elementary school. She said kids that age still believed in magic, and she wanted to protect that for as long as possible. She sounds wonderful. She was. Rowan's jaw tightened, and her husband destroyed her piece by piece. Made her believe the light she carried was too much. Too bright. Too threatening to his fragile ego. By the time she came to me for help, she was a shadow, and I was too busy to see it. You were young, building your company. That is not an excuse. Rowan met Paige's eyes. I had the resources to help her. I just did not make it a priority. And she died thinking no one cared enough to save her. Paige's throat tightened. Is that why you helped me? To save her retroactively? Rowan was quiet for a long moment. At first, maybe. I saw you at that gala. Saw Wade humiliate you, and I saw Adelaide. Saw my chance to do what I should have done for her. But Paige, somewhere along the way, it stopped being about Adelaide. He leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. It became about you. About who you are. Your strength. Your grace. Your refusal to stay broken. You are not a proxy for my sister. You are. He paused, searching for words. You are the person I did not know I was waiting to meet. The air between them shifted. Charged. Electric. Paige's heart raced. Rowan, you do not have to say anything. Rowan said gently. I am not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that tomorrow, when you walk into that gala, you are not doing it alone. You are not doing it to prove anything to Wade. You are doing it because you have built something remarkable, and the world deserves to see it. And I will be there, in whatever capacity you need, cheering you on. Tears blurred Paige's vision. Thank you. For seeing me. For believing in me when I could not believe in myself. That is what you do for people you. Rowan stopped himself. For people who matter. They sat in comfortable silence until Paige's eyelids grew heavy. Rowan left quietly, and for the first time in days, Paige slept without anxiety. Tomorrow would be her moment. And she was ready. The Skyline Summit Gala was held on the rooftop of the Apex Hotel, a venue so exclusive that even Chicago's wealthiest had to be personally invited. The space was breathtaking. A glass ceiling that opened to the stars. Crystal chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls. Marble floors polished to mirror shine. Champagne towers that caught the light like liquid gold. Paige arrived with Rowan, her hand tucked into his arm, not out of need but out of choice. She wore the midnight blue gown, her hair in soft waves, minimal jewelry except for her mother's pearl earrings. Simple, elegant, powerful. The moment they stepped out of the car, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Calloway, how do you feel about your ex-husband's legal troubles? Paige, is it true you are dating Rowan Thatcher? What is your message for women facing similar betrayals? Paige smiled calmly and kept walking. Rowan's security team cleared a path. She had agreed to one brief statement for the press. Standing in front of the cameras, Paige took a breath. I am here tonight to celebrate the launch of the Calloway Foundation, which supports women rebuilding their lives after leaving toxic relationships. Every woman deserves to be seen, valued, and respected. And every woman has the strength to rise, even when the world tells her she is broken. That is all I have to say. Thank you. She walked away from the flashing cameras with her head high, Rowan beside her, and entered the gala. The ballroom was already filled with Chicago's elite. Politicians. Business leaders. Socialites. The same crowd that had whispered about her humiliation 6 months ago. But tonight, the whispers were different. That is Paige Calloway, the one who started the foundation. I heard she has helped over 50 women already. Did you see her art exhibition announcement? Gallery owner says she is extraordinarily talented. She looks incredible. Pregnancy suits her. Paige felt the shift. She was no longer the pitted wife. She was the woman who had risen from the ashes. And then she saw him. Wade Calloway stood near the bar, Kendra on his arm. He wore an expensive tuxedo that could not hide the strain around his eyes, the weight loss, the desperation clinging to him like bad cologne. Kendra looked bored, her red dress even more provocative than before, her attention already scanning the room for better options. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. For a moment, Paige felt the old fear, the old shame, the old pain. Then Rowan's hand touched the small of her back. Gentle, grounding. You have got this. The fear dissolved. Wade was just a man, a flawed, desperate man who had made terrible choices. He did not have power over her anymore. Paige smiled. Not a cruel smile. Not a triumphant smile. Just a smile that said, I am free of you. Wade's expression crumbled. He turned away first. The evening progressed with dinner, networking, and the inevitable society drama. Paige sat at the head table with Rowan, the gala organizers, and several prominent philanthropists. She made conversation, laughed genuinely, and felt more herself than she had in years. Across the room, Wade drank too much champagne. Kendra barely spoke to him, too busy flirting with a young hedge fund manager at the next table. Every time Wade looked in Paige's direction and saw her smiling, saw her glowing, saw her surrounded by people who actually respected her, something inside him died a little more. Finally, the moment came. The gala organizer, a distinguished woman named Catherine Blackwell, took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the honor of recognizing someone whose courage and vision are changing lives across our city. 6 months ago, Paige Calloway faced one of the most difficult moments a woman can face. Public humiliation by someone who should have protected her. But instead of letting that moment define her, she used it as fuel. She launched the Calloway Foundation, dedicated to helping women escape toxic marriages and rebuild their lives with dignity. Please join me in welcoming our honored guest, Paige Calloway. The applause was thunderous. Paige stood, her heart pounding, and walked to the podium. The baby kicked hard, as if saying, "You can do this, Mom." She looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces. Some friendly, some curious, some, like Wade's, openly hostile. She took a breath and began. 6 months ago, I stood in a room very much like this one. 7 months pregnant. Alone. Watching my husband publicly humiliate me with his mistress. I felt invisible. Worthless. Broken. The room was absolutely silent. I went home that night and cried until I had no tears left. I looked at my pregnant belly and wondered how I was going to raise a child when I could barely hold myself together. I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who had dreams and fire and believed she could change the world. And I wondered where she had gone. Paige's voice grew stronger. But something happened in those dark hours. A stranger showed me kindness when I expected cruelty. A friend reminded me I was stronger than I knew. And my unborn child, this little person who had no choice but to trust me, gave me a reason to fight. She paused, letting her words sink in. I learned something profound in those months. Betrayal does not break you. It reveals you. It shows you what you are really made of when everything else is stripped away. And I discovered I was made of the same strength my mother showed when she worked double shifts to keep our family afloat. The same determination my father had when he taught kids that education was their ticket out. The same fire I had carried to Chicago years ago, believing I could build something meaningful. Paige looked directly at Wade. His face was pale, his champagne glass trembling in his hand. The Calloway Foundation exists because I know I am not the only woman who has been made to feel small by someone who claimed to love her. I know I am not the only one who has been told she is too much or not enough. I know I am not the only one who has stayed in a toxic situation because leaving seemed impossible. Her voice rang out clear and strong. But I am here to tell you that leaving is possible. Rebuilding is possible. Thriving is possible. In the past 6 months, our foundation has helped 63 women leave abusive marriages. We have provided legal support, housing assistance, job training, and counseling. We have walked beside women as they rediscovered their strength. And every single one of them taught me something. That we are not victims of our circumstances. We are architects of our futures. The crowd began to applaud, but Paige held up a hand. She was not finished. To anyone watching tonight who feels trapped, who feels invisible, who feels like they have lost themselves, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are breaking free. And that is the bravest thing you can do. Do not let anyone, not a spouse, not society, not even your own fear, convince you that you are less than magnificent. You are worthy of love that honors you, respect that sees you, partnership that celebrates you. She placed her hand on her belly. My daughter will be born into a world where her mother refused to accept less than she deserved, where her mother chose dignity over comfort, where her mother showed her that women do not need rescuing. We need respect. We need support. We need each other. The applause now was deafening. People rose to their feet. Even some of the hardened businessmen had tears in their eyes. Paige looked at Rowan, whose expression was pure pride. Then she looked at Wade one last time. Thank you for being here tonight, for supporting the foundation, for believing that every woman deserves a chance to rise. Because we do, and we will. She stepped away from the podium to a standing ovation that seemed to shake the glass ceiling above them. Catherine Blackwell hugged her. That was the most powerful speech I have ever heard. As Paige made her way back to her seat, women stopped her. Some shook her hand. Some hugged her. Some whispered, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." And Wade Calloway sat frozen at his table, watching the woman he had discarded receive the love and respect he had always craved but never earned. The night was far from over. After the speeches concluded, the gala shifted into its social phase. Music played, guests mingled, deals were made in corners over champagne. Paige found herself surrounded by people wanting to donate to the foundation, share their own stories, or simply tell her how moved they were by her words. Rowan stayed close, but not hovering. Protective, but not possessive. Just present. That is when Wade made his move. He pushed through the crowd. Kendra abandoned at the bar, his face flushed from alcohol and rage. "Paige." His voice was too loud. "We need to talk." The conversations around them died. People stepped back, sensing drama. Paige turned to face him calmly. "We have nothing to discuss, Wade. My lawyer handles all communication. You cannot do this." Wade's words slurred slightly. "You cannot just walk away and pretend you are some kind of hero. You are my wife. Ex-wife. The divorce was finalized yesterday. Did your lawyer not tell you?" Wade's face went white. "That is impossible. I did not sign." "You forfeited your right to contest when you failed to respond to 3 separate court summons," Miranda said quietly. She had appeared at Paige's elbow. "The judge granted default judgment this morning. It is over, Mr. Calloway. You." Wade turned to Rowan, who had moved to Paige's other side. "This is your fault. You have been sabotaging me from the beginning. Industrial espionage. You hacked my company. I will bury you in lawsuits." Rowan's expression was ice. "I did not have to hack anything. Your head of operations handed over everything voluntarily. Turns out loyalty has limits, and you exceeded yours. You arrogant." Wade lunged forward. Security moved instantly, grabbing Wade's arms before he could reach Rowan. But the commotion had drawn every camera in the room. Wade struggled against the guards. "You think you have won? Both of you? You will regret this. I will destroy you." Paige stepped forward, and something in her expression made Wade freeze. "Wade." Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. "You destroyed yourself. Every choice that led you here was yours. The affairs, the fraud, the cruelty. You did this. Not me. Not Rowan. You." Wade's eyes filled with something that might have been tears. "Paige, I made mistakes. But I loved you. I did." "No," Paige said gently. "You loved what I represented. The good wife. The supportive partner. The woman who made you look respectable. But you never loved me. Because if you had, you would have seen me. And you never did." Wade's shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him. Security began escorting him toward the exit. Kendra's voice cut through the crowd. "Wade, call me when you get your money sorted out. Otherwise, lose my number." The crowd gasped at her audacity. Wade's humiliation was complete. As security removed him from the ballroom, Paige felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Just closure. Catherine Blackwell appeared beside her. "I am so sorry. We had no idea he would cause a scene." "It is fine," Paige said. "Actually, it is perfect. Everyone here just saw exactly who he is. And who I am not." Rowan touched her elbow gently. "Are you ready to leave?" Paige looked around the ballroom one last time. The glittering chandeliers. The beautiful people. The world she had once thought she wanted. "Yes," she said, "but not in a car." Rowan's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I was hoping you would say that." He led her through the crowd, out onto the rooftop terrace where the glass ceiling opened to the night sky. The Chicago wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of coming winter. And there, gleaming under the city lights, sat a helicopter. black and sleek, with the Thatcher Global logo on its side. Paige stopped, her eyes widening. What is this? You said you wanted a fresh start. Rowan said, his hand warm on hers. I thought we should start dramatically. Where are we going? Wherever you want. I have a lake house. Quiet. Private. Good for thinking. Or we can go to the city. Or, he hesitated, vulnerability crossing his face. Or we can just fly. Sometimes the journey matters more than the destination. Paige looked back through the glass at the ballroom. She could see Wade being escorted out onto the street below. Could see the crowd still buzzing about what had just happened. Could see her old life fading like a dream upon waking. Then she looked at Rowan. This man who had appeared when she was broken, who had given her space to heal and support to grow, who had never tried to rescue her, only walked beside her. Let us fly, she said. Rowan's smile could have lit the entire city. He helped her into the helicopter, his hands gentle on her pregnant form. The pilot, a professional woman named Captain Anderson, gave them a reassuring nod. Buckled in and ready when you are. As the rotors began to turn, Paige looked down one last time. Wade had made it to the street. He stood on the pavement, his face turned upward, watching. She saw his mouth open, saw him scream something that was lost in the noise of the helicopter. You cannot do this, Paige. You hear me? You cannot just leave like this. But she could, and she was. The helicopter lifted off, and Chicago spread below them like a sea of stars. The buildings grew smaller, the problems even smaller, until everything was just light and possibility. Rowan's hand found hers in the darkness of the cabin. How does it feel? Paige turned to him, and for the first time in years, felt completely free. Like I just remembered how to breathe. They flew over Lake Michigan, the water reflecting moonlight like a million scattered diamonds. The city faded behind them, and ahead was only sky and stars, and the promise of something new. Below, on the street outside the Apex Hotel, Wade Calloway watched the helicopter disappear into the night. His empire was collapsing. His wife was gone. His mistress had abandoned him. His reputation was destroyed. And the woman he had thrown away was flying into the future with the one man who could have saved him but chose to save her instead. For the first time in his life, Wade Calloway understood what he had lost, and the realization brought him to his knees. The lake house was everything Paige needed. Modern but warm, all windows and wood, nestled on the shore of Lake Michigan. When they arrived, the moon was high and the water was singing against the rocks. Captain Anderson helped Paige out of the helicopter. Call when you need a ride back, she said with a knowing smile. Inside, Rowan had clearly prepared for this. The fireplace was already set to light. The kitchen was stocked. There were fresh flowers on the table and soft blankets on the couch. You planned this, Paige said, looking around. I hoped. Rowan corrected. There is a difference. Paige was exhausted. The adrenaline of the evening was fading, leaving her drained. The baby was doing gymnastics, responding to all the excitement. Rowan made her tea without asking. Decaf chamomile. Found blankets. Built a fire. Did not hover, but was simply there. They sat by the fireplace, the flames casting dancing shadows, the world outside quiet and dark. Thank you, Paige said softly. For tonight. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. Rowan turned to her, his gray eyes reflecting firelight. Paige, you were never invisible. You were just surrounded by people who refused to look. She felt tears threaten. For so long, I thought I needed Wade. Needed his money, his status, his validation. But I did not need any of that. I just needed to remember who I was. And who are you? Paige smiled. I am still figuring that out. But I know I am not his wife anymore. I am not his mistake. I am just Paige. Artist. Advocate. Almost mother. And that is enough. Rowan's expression softened. It is more than enough. The space between them felt charged again. Electric. Full of possibility and danger and hope. Paige. Rowan's voice was rough. I need to tell you something. And you do not have to respond. You do not have to do anything with this information. But I cannot go another day without saying it. Her heart pounded. Okay. I am in love with you. The words hung in the air like something sacred. I have been for months. Maybe since that elevator. Maybe since I watched you walk out of your marriage with your head high. I do not know exactly when it happened. But I know that you are the strongest, most remarkable person I have ever met. And I am not telling you this to pressure you. I am telling you because you deserve to know that you are loved. Truly. Completely. Not for what you can give me or how you make me look, but for who you are. Tears streamed down Paige's face. Rowan, you do not have to say anything. He repeated gently. I just needed you to know. But Paige reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. I am terrified, she whispered, of feeling this way, of trusting again, of believing this is real. I know. I am about to have another man's baby. I am a mess. I am damaged. You are not damaged, Rowan said fiercely. You are healing. There is a difference. What if I hurt you? What if I cannot give you what you need? Rowan cupped her face gently. Paige, I do not need you to be perfect. I do not need you to have all the answers. I just need you to be honest. And if that honesty is I am not ready, then I will wait. If it is I cannot do this, then I will step back. But if there is even a chance that what you feel for me is a fraction of what I feel for you, then I am willing to be patient. Paige closed her eyes, feeling his thumb brush away her tears. When she opened them, she knew what she needed to say. I am falling in love with you too. The words came out in a rush. And it terrifies me because the last time I loved someone, he destroyed me. But you are not him. You have shown me what respect looks like, what partnership looks like, what it means to be seen. And I do not know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. Rowan's smile was like sunrise breaking. Can I kiss you? Paige nodded, her heart full to bursting. The kiss was gentle, reverent, nothing rushed or desperate. Just two people who had found each other in the wreckage of their pain, choosing to build something new. When they pulled apart, Paige was crying again. But these were not tears of sadness. These were tears of release, of hope, of beginning. They sat by the fire until Paige could barely keep her eyes open. Rowan showed her to the guest room, which had a lake view and the most comfortable bed she had ever seen. I am right down the hall if you need anything, he said. Rowan. She caught his hand. Stay? Not like that. Just stay. I do not want to be alone tonight. He understood. He lay on top of the covers beside her, fully clothed, his hand in hers. And Paige fell asleep to the sound of his breathing and the knowledge that she was safe. For the first time in months, she slept without nightmares. 3 weeks later, at 2 a.m, Paige woke to a sharp pain in her abdomen. She was back at the townhouse, having returned from the lake house after a few days of peace and rest. Her water broke as she tried to stand. Oh no, she whispered. Oh no, oh no, oh no. She called Rowan, her hands shaking. He answered immediately. Paige, what is wrong? The baby. It is coming. I am on my way. Do not move. Call 911. I will be there in 10 minutes. He made it in 8. By the time the ambulance arrived, Rowan had Paige's hospital bag ready, had called her doctor, and was holding her hand through contractions with a calmness that belied his terror. You have got this, he kept saying. You are the strongest person I know. The ride to Northwestern Memorial was a blur. The pain, the fear, the overwhelming sense that everything was about to change. But when they wheeled her into the delivery room, Rowan was there. Hold my hand. Paige gasped. Please do not leave. I am not going anywhere. He promised. 17 hours later, at 7:32 in the morning, Adelaide Rose Calloway entered the world. 6 pounds, 8 ounces. Dark hair. Curious eyes. Perfect fingers that wrapped immediately around Paige's. The moment Paige held her daughter, she understood something profound. This was worth it. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the struggle, because it had led her here, to this moment, to this perfect little person who would never know a world where her mother accepted less than she deserved. She is perfect, Rowan whispered, tears streaming down his face. Paige, she is absolutely perfect. Paige looked at him, this man who had stayed through labor, who had coached her breathing, who had cried when Adelaide was born as if she were his own. Adelaide, she said, after your sister. If that is okay. Rowan could not speak. He just nodded, covering his face with his hands, shoulders shaking with sobs he had held for years. Paige reached for his hand. Thank you. For being here. For choosing us. Rowan kissed her forehead. Thank you for letting me. They sat in that hospital room as the sun rose over Chicago, a makeshift family bound not by blood but by choice. And Paige knew that this was what love looked like. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but showing up, being present, choosing each other every day. Wade Calloway was not there for Adelaide's birth. In fact, he did not even know she had been born until 3 days later when his lawyer informed him during a court proceeding about his visitation rights. He had asked for joint custody. The judge had laughed. Actually laughed. Mr. Calloway, you are under federal indictment for fraud. You publicly humiliated your pregnant wife. And you have not made a single attempt to be involved in this child's life. Supervised visitation, twice a month, pending completion of parenting classes and a psychological evaluation. That is my ruling. Wade's lawyer tried to protest, but the judge was done. Your client should be grateful he is getting any access at all. Wade left the courthouse and drove to a bar, drank until he could not remember his own name. And somewhere in the haze, he pulled out his phone and looked at the photos circulating online. Paige leaving the hospital with baby Adelaide. Rowan beside her, carrying the car seat. Looking at Paige with such tenderness, it was almost painful to witness. The headlines read, Paige Calloway welcomes baby girl. Rowan Thatcher by her side. The comments were brutal. Looks like she upgraded in every way. That baby is lucky to have a real man in her life, even if he is not the father. Wade must be kicking himself. Wade stared at the photos until they blurred. Then he deleted his social media apps and ordered another drink. The following months were a beautiful chaos. Paige settled into motherhood with a fierce love she had not known she was capable of. Adelaide was colicky at first, crying through nights, refusing to sleep longer than 2 hours at a stretch. But Paige did not face it alone. Rowan was there, not as a father, not yet, but as a partner. He took night shifts so Paige could sleep. He learned to change diapers and warm bottles. He read parenting books and assembled baby furniture with a dedication that made Paige fall even more in love with him. You do not have to do this, she said one night as he rocked Adelaide at 3 in the morning. She is not your responsibility. Rowan looked at her, his eyes serious. She is not a responsibility. She is a gift. And so are you. The foundation continued to grow. Even on maternity leave, Paige stayed involved, conducting video meetings from home, reviewing cases, raising funds. The media attention from the gala had brought in significant donations. They were able to expand to 3 locations across Illinois. One afternoon, a woman named Jennifer came to the townhouse for a consultation. She was 35, with 2 young sons, fleeing a husband who had been emotionally abusive for a decade. Paige sat with her in the living room, Adelaide sleeping in her bassinet nearby, and listened to Jennifer's story. It sounds silly, Jennifer said, wiping tears. He never hit me, so people do not understand why I am leaving. Paige reached for her hand. Abuse is not just physical. Emotional abuse is real. Financial control is real. Isolation is real. You are not silly. You are brave. Jennifer looked at Adelaide. How do you do it? Raise a baby alone after everything you went through? I am not alone, Paige said simply. And neither are you. That is what the foundation is for. We walk together. By the time Jennifer left 2 hours later, she had a lawyer, a therapist, and a safe house lined up. She hugged Paige tightly. Thank you for seeing me. After she left, Paige held Adelaide and cried. Not from sadness, but from purpose. This was why she had survived. To help others survive too. When Adelaide was 3 months old, Paige received an invitation that made her hands shake. The Millennium Gallery wanted to host her solo exhibition. 6 months from now. A full show dedicated to her work. Catherine Moss called personally. Your story is powerful, Paige. Your art is extraordinary. This show will be transformative. Not just for your career, but for everyone who sees it. Paige looked at the canvases stacked in her studio. Paintings she had created during her pregnancy. During her healing. Pieces that showed her journey from invisible to unbreakable. Yes, she said. Let us do it. The preparation for the exhibition consumed her in the best way. She painted Adelaide's birth. Her first night at the lake house with Rowan. The moment she walked away from Wade. The helicopter rising over Chicago. Each piece was raw, honest, unflinching. Rowan watched her work with quiet awe. You are extraordinary, he said one evening as she finished a particularly emotional piece. I am just telling the truth. That is what makes it extraordinary. Not everyone has the courage to tell their truth. Their relationship deepened slowly, carefully. They did not rush into physical intimacy. Both understood that trust was built in moments, not declarations. But they built it. In shared meals and late-night conversations. In the way Rowan looked at Adelaide with such tenderness. In the way Paige leaned into his touch without flinching. 6 months after Adelaide's birth, Paige's parents visited from Indiana. Her father, a quiet man, shook Rowan's hand firmly. Thank you for taking care of my girls. They take care of me. Rowan replied honestly. Her mother, Susan, held Adelaide and cried happy tears. I was so worried about you. Susan said to Paige. But look at you now. Strong. Successful. Loved. I am happy, Mom. Paige said. Really, truly happy. And she was. The gallery opening was scheduled for a cool evening in October, exactly 1 year after the night Wade had humiliated her at the gala. Paige found the timing poetic. The Millennium Gallery was packed. Critics, collectors, fellow artists, people whose opinions could make or break a career. But Paige was not nervous. She stood in front of her work, Adelaide with a babysitter at home, Rowan beside her in a sharp suit, and felt only pride. The series was called Rising. 20 pieces that told her story without words. The titles were simple. Invisible, Shattered, Fury, Flight, Rebirth, Whole. A prominent art critic from the Tribune spent 20 minutes in front of Shattered, a piece showing a pregnant woman's reflection multiplying in broken mirrors. When he finally moved, there were tears on his face. Extraordinary, he murmured. Absolutely extraordinary. By the end of the night, every piece had sold. Collectors bid against each other. The gallery director was ecstatic. One painting, Flight, sold for $75,000 to an anonymous buyer. Later, Paige discovered the buyer was Rowan. I could not let anyone else have it. He said sheepishly. That moment, you in the helicopter choosing freedom, that was when I knew you were going to be okay. Better than okay. You are ridiculous, Paige said, but she was smiling. Ridiculously in love with you. He corrected. The success of the exhibition was covered by every major art publication. Paige Calloway was no longer Wade's ex-wife. She was an artist in her own right. A voice. A force. And Wade, sitting in his modest apartment, saw the articles and understood that he had not just lost a wife. He had lost someone irreplaceable. Someone who would have stood beside him through anything, if only he had chosen to see her. But he had not. And now she was flying so far above him. He could not even see her shadow. 1 year after Adelaide's birth, Rowan took Paige back to the place where it all began. The Art Institute of Chicago. The courtyard where Wade had proposed years ago. Paige was confused when they arrived. Why are we here? Rowan took her hand. Because I want to replace a bad memory with a good one. In the courtyard, the autumn leaves were falling, painting the ground in shades of gold and crimson. Adelaide was with Harper, who had flown in for a visit. Rowan led Paige to a bench and sat beside her. Paige, this past year has been the greatest of my life. Not because of my company or my success, but because I got to watch you become who you were always meant to be. I watched you launch a foundation that has helped hundreds of women. I watched you create art that moves people to tears. I watched you become a mother who teaches her daughter that strength and gentleness can coexist. Paige's heart was racing. Rowan, what are you? He slid off the bench and onto one knee. Her breath caught. I am not asking you to complete me, because you are already whole. I am not asking you to need me, because you are already strong. I am asking if you will let me walk beside you. If you and Adelaide will let me be your family. Not because you need saving, but because love is better when it is shared. He pulled out a ring. Simple. Elegant. A phoenix rising, etched delicately into the band. Paige Calloway, will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. Yes. Oh my God, yes. Rowan slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They kissed in the courtyard where Wade had once proposed with arrogance, and Rowan now proposed with humility. And Paige understood something beautiful. The same place could hold two entirely different stories. It was not the location that mattered. It was the person you chose to share it with. They were married 6 months later in a quiet ceremony at the lake house. 50 guests. Paige's parents. Harper. The foundation staff. Rowan's family. Adelaide, now 18 months old, was the flower girl, toddling down the aisle and stealing everyone's hearts. Paige wore a simple white dress she had designed herself. Not a wedding gown. Just a beautiful dress for a beautiful day. When it was time for vows, Paige spoke first. Rowan, you appeared when my world was ending and showed me it was actually beginning. You gave me space to heal, time to grow, and patience to become whole. I promise to never lose myself again. And to never let you lose yourself either. This is partnership. This is what love looks like. Rowan's voice was thick with emotion. Paige, you are the strongest person I have ever known. You taught me that love is not about rescuing. It is about respecting. I promise to honor your independence, celebrate your strength, and stand beside you always. And Adelaide, I promise to be the father you deserve. Adelaide, sitting on Harper's lap, shouted Dada, and everyone laughed through tears. They were pronounced married as the sun set over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in impossible colors. At the reception, Paige danced with her father. You did good, sweetheart. Tom said, this one sees you. I know, Dad. This one really does. Later, as Paige and Rowan cut the cake, Adelaide between them, someone's phone buzzed with a news alert. Wade Calloway sentenced to 5 years federal prison for fraud. Paige saw the headline and felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Just indifference. Rowan noticed her expression. Are you okay? I am perfect. Paige said honestly. He is the past. This, she gestured to their wedding, to Adelaide, to the life they were building, is my present. My future. And I am not wasting another moment looking backward. She kissed him as their guests applauded, and Adelaide clapped her little hands with delight. Years later, Paige would stand in the same ballroom where Wade had humiliated her, but this time as the keynote speaker for a national women's empowerment conference. Adelaide would be 7, sitting in the front row beside Rowan, watching her mother command a stage. And Paige would tell her story one more time, not because she was defined by it, but because it might help someone else find their strength. She would end her speech the same way she always did. 5 years ago in this room, I learned what betrayal feels like. Tonight, I am here to tell you what rising feels like. And I promise you it is better. The standing ovation would last for 5 minutes. But that is the future. Right now, at this wedding, Paige Calloway Thatcher danced with her husband, her daughter asleep in his arms, and knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because someone rescued her, but because she rescued herself. And then she chose to share her life with someone who celebrated that strength instead of fearing it. So that is it, my dear friends. The story has reached its end. But if you are still here with me right now, it means something deeper has touched your heart. Maybe you saw a piece of yourself in Paige's journey. Those moments of betrayal, of breaking down in silence, of feeling like you were not enough. Or maybe you felt the fire of her rise. The quiet strength of choosing dignity over despair. Of rebuilding from ashes and finding that your worth was never dependent on another person's validation. Life has a way of testing us in brutal ways, does it not? But here is the truth that the ancient Stoics understood. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. That is the essence of healing. Knowing that pain and betrayal do not define you. Your response does. Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every wound you have carried, every heartbreak you have endured, can become the very force that guides you toward strength. Paige's humiliation became her turning point. Her brokenness became her rebirth. And the same can be true for you. If you are here right now, let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are being reshaped into someone stronger, wiser, and freer than you ever imagined. Whatever betrayal you faced, whether in love, in friendship, or even in your own battle with self-doubt, remember that healing is possible. Rising again is possible. And now I want to invite you into this movement of strength and hope. If Paige's story spoke to you, if even one sentence made your heartbeat faster, then do not keep it to yourself. Hit that like button right now. Smash it. Let the algorithm know that stories of resilience and transformation matter. Subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories because we are not just telling stories here. We are building a community where no one has to rise alone, where your pain is understood, where your strength is celebrated. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone going through their own betrayal, their own dark night, their own moment of doubt. Let them know they are not alone. And please, drop a comment below. Tell me where in the world you are watching from. Are you in New York? California? Somewhere across the ocean in London or Tokyo? Or maybe you are in a small town like where Paige grew up. Wherever you are, I want to know you are here. Or just type I'm with you Mr. Hearthline, so I know you witnessed this journey with me. Because these stories, they are not just entertainment. They are reminders that we all have the power to write our next chapter differently. Paige Calloway walked into a gala 7 months pregnant and invisible. She left in a helicopter with a man who saw her worth. Not because he gave her value, but because he helped her remember she had always had it. That helicopter is waiting for you too. The one that lifts you above your pain, above your past, above everyone who told you that you were not enough. You are worthy. You are stronger than anyone who tried to diminish you. And your next chapter, the one you write yourself, can be more beautiful than anything you have lost. So carry this truth with you tonight. Betrayal reveals, it does not ruin. Anger is fuel, not failure. And sometimes the person who breaks you accidentally leads you to the one who makes you whole. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that rising is possible. Now go. Fly. Show the world what happens when someone who was told they were nothing decides they are everything. Your helicopter is waiting. This is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that no matter who tried to break you, you still hold the power to rise. Until next time, keep your heart open, your head high, and your spirit unbreakable. Peace.